And hello, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I'm your host, as always, Tony Defio, and I thank you for joining me on tonight's show. It's a fine and lovely evening in Pittsburgh, and as I always say, I hope it's a fine and lovely evening wherever you are in Steeler Nation. If you're watching me live on YouTube, well, what a better time than now to ask you to please like and subscribe to our Behind Steel Curtain YouTube channel. We bring you live shows each and every day and night, including this show. We have The Hangover on Monday with Brian and Shannon White, Brian Anthony Davis and Shannon White. We have post-game stuff following every Steelers game. You'll see that this Sunday. We have the Touchdown Under show with Matty Peverall and Mark Davison. That's every Friday 5. So if you watch that or listen to that earlier on Friday evening, Eastern Standard Time, of course. Let's see, we have, what else? We have the Scobro show on Tuesday night with Dave Schofield and Rich Schofield. Wednesday night, we have Know Your Enemy with Jeffrey Benedict and Shannon. Thursday, we have the very popular Steelers preview with Jeff Hartman, Dave, and Brian. We have We Run the North with Kevin Tate and his friends. They discuss all things AFC North. Let's see, we have, is that it? I think that's it for the live shows. And you can catch all those live shows also live on Facebook every day. And if you're watching me right now on Facebook, you know that. And of course, you can catch all of our live shows after the fact. Anywhere you can find audio podcasts, you can find Behind Steel Curtains podcast channel. And of course, we also have audio-only podcasts that you can catch, again, on any audio platform, including Let's Ride with Jeff Hartman, Bad Language with Brian, From the Cutting Room Floor with Jeffrey, the Stat Geek with Dave Schofield, What Ian's Talking About with Kyle Kreis and his friends, the Steelers Fix with Jeremy Betts and Andrew Wilbar. So please check those out and check out Behind Steel Curtain, the website. We bring you news, commentary, film breakdown. It's your one-stop shop for all your Steelers needs, and you will not be sorry. And let's check out the live chat tonight. Let's see who we have in the live chat. Jared Devil, first one in. First win for him in a long time. Kathy Forred, Steeler Chick 46. Biggie Bronco's with us, the legendary Biggie Bronco. Kyle Johnson. All right, Kathy Ford. We have everybody in, and we have a nice crew tonight on a lovely Friday night. So let's get into the swing of things by talking about last Sunday's game, a little review of the Week 1 crazy, thrilling, scary victory, overtime victory over the Bengals, the AFC champion Bengals at Paycor Stadium. Wow. In a lot of ways, it was a repeat of last year's Week 1 win, which I figured if they would win, it would be a lot. It would unfold kind of like it did last year with the defense dominating. And boy, did it ever dominate, even more than it did last year. What an impressive performance by the Steelers defense in the 23-20 victory. If I didn't say it already, it went into overtime, and it took every last second of overtime to win. Of course, you know that already, but what a performance. I mean, what a performance from the defense from beginning to end. It started on the very first play from scrimmage for the Bengals anyway, when Cam Hayward just annihilated the Bengals rookie guard and sacked Joe Burrow. And then the second play from scrimmage, Minka Fitzpatrick picked off Burrow and took it 31 yards for a touchdown. I'm not going to review the whole game, but to highlight some points in that game, TJ Watt jumped up and intercepted a Burrow pass at the line of scrimmage, just a freakishly athletic play. And that was really the Steelers' only sustained offensive drive, 59 yards, and they converted it into a touchdown from Trubisky to Harris for 1 1-yard touchdown pass. So let's see what else. I think a big play in a game that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, or a big sequence, I should say, is the end of the first half. People talk about the goal line stand at the end of the game, rightfully so, at the end of regulation anyway. But the goal line stand that occurred at the end of the first half after Joe Mixon, the Bengals running back, raced down inside the 5 on a, 4th and 1. Boy, the Steelers defense held the Bengals out of the end zone on third down. I believe it was third down. Levi Wallace forced receiver Jamar Chase out of bounds. He was going to catch a touchdown pass in the front corner of the end zone, but Wallace shoved him out right before he could get both feet in bounds, and the Bengals had to settle for a field goal. And instead of it being 17, it was 17-3 at the time. Instead of it being 17-10 at the half, it was 17-6. I thought, a game that ends, that goes into overtime and ends on a field goal. I thought there was a big play that didn't really get talked about all week. What can you say about Minkah Fitzpatrick in that game? Just a lights out performance. Obviously, the pick six. He had 14 tackles. He had the blocked extra point at the end of regulation that sent the game into overtime after the Bengals came back. After the Steelers held the Broncos on that aforementioned goal line stand with less than 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, the second goal line stand, the more famous goal line stand with 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, the Steelers offense did a really horrible job of running the clock down. I mean, they ran on first down. Najee Harris got hurt. He had to be taken off. The second play was a pass, so there was no time taken off the clock. You didn't force the Bengals to use the timeout. So really, they took 20. There was 1:51 left when the Steelers took over, and they had to punt the ball back with 1:27 left on the clock. So it was a poor job of, people criticize Mike Tomlin of his time management. That was a good example of that criticism right there. If you want to criticize Tomlin for that, go right ahead, because that was a really poor job all the way around by everybody involved. Especially after the Harris injury, when he hurt his foot or ankle and had to be taken off. It's just it wasn't Harris's fault that he got injured, but it prevented the Bengals from having to use a timeout. And then the second play, you pass the ball, it goes incomplete. They don't have to use a timeout there. So it was just a really, really poor job there by the offense, which wasn't a shock if you think about it, because the offense played poorly the entire game. Anyway, the Bengals took the ball down the field and scored a touchdown with 2 seconds left from Burrow to Chase. And it looked like they were going to win the game. It would have been a pretty heartbreaking loss because the Steelers led the whole way. And to lose 21-20 like that, it would have been pretty heartbreaking. But again, Fitzpatrick just played the game of his life and blocked the extra point. And of course, there was luck involved. The Bengals long snapper got hurt, and a backup tight end, I figured Wilcox, he had to fill in, and he just was not doing he did not have a good day in that regard. It's a harder job than you think, and it just goes to show you how fine a line there is in the NFL. I mean, really, his snap on that extra point was basically a half a second off, and that's all it took for Fitzpatrick to get in there and block it. And then later in overtime, his snap was high, and the Bengals punter, why he did it was third down when the Bengals were attempting a field goal in overtime, and it was going to be a game winner, but it was a high snap. And why the Bengals punter didn't just eat the ball at that point, just fall on the ball and live for another play, I don't know. But anyway, they were attempting a 29-yard field goal, and that was really wide right. So that allowed the Steelers to get a chance. And believe it or not, they got into field goal range, and Chris Boswell attempted a 55-yarder, and it went. It looked like it was going to be good, but it clanged off the left upright, and the game lived on. And there were only 2 minutes and 27 seconds left in overtime, and it looked like it was headed for a tie. But the defense gave the ball back one more time to the offense, and somehow, some way, Mitch Trubisky, who struggled all day, the offense struggled all day. 13 first downs. They were 4 of 15 on third down. It was just a bad day for the offense. But Trubisky made a couple plays in overtime. He kept the play alive on 3rd and 1. The Bengals jumped off sides. It was a free play, and he used his very elusive scrambling skills and found tight end Pat Frymuth, and he raced into Bengals territory. A couple plays later, the Steelers had the ball at the 35 after another pass to Frymuth, and there were literally 5 seconds left in overtime, and Boswell converted this time from 53 yards away, and the Steelers won. Wow, what a game! And back to that defense. I mean, you can't ask more from that defense than what you saw on Sunday. 7 sacks, 11 quarterback hits, 5 takeaways. 5 takeaways. Obviously, Hayward was a wrecking ball like he always is. He had the sack, and he had a fumble recovery on a Alex Highsmith strip sack. And Highsmith had the game of his life, three sacks and that forced fumble. TJ Watt had a great game. More on him later. Obviously, Fitzpatrick had the game of his life, and he was named AFC Defensive Player of the Week. Again, I thought Levi Wallace made a very important play at the end of the first half by forcing Chase out of bounds. I thought Cam Sutton had a good game. He made a great. He had a great break up on 4th down on that second goal line stand with less than 2 minutes to go. Terrell Edmonds had a great game, or at least a solid game. Devin Bush had a solid game. Miles Jack had a really good game. I mean, what a pickup that guy was. Who am I missing? I think I got just about everybody. It was just a great effort by the defense all the way around, and it just shows you how talented this unit really is from top to bottom. At least the starters anyway, and some of the reserve players. As far as the offense, it looked like the same offensive attack we saw all of last year, and going all the way back to maybe the midway part of the 2020 season. It just lacked in any kind of explosiveness. I mean, the running game didn't get going at all. Najee Harris had 23 yards on 10 carries. Their best running play of the day was were jet sweeps to Chase Claypool. I mean, he was their leading rusher on the day. So just was not a good day for the running attack. And of course, the passing attack looked just like it did under Ben Roethlisberger last year. Trubisky dropped back, and most passes were short passes at the sideline. They very rarely attacked the middle of the field. The 10, 15, 20-yard pass was rare. Of course, there were few deep shots. People keep, I listened to Craig Wolfley on the Mark Madden show on Friday, and he talked about, you just have to keep, as far as the running game, you just have to keep working at it. It'll get there. Like they talk about, you got to keep hitting the rock with the hammer until you break it. But that's not what the issue is. I don't think the issue is necessarily the line's failure to get a push. Yeah, the line failed to get a push and failed to open holes yet again. But I think the biggest problem is the line can't get a push, and it can't create running lanes because there's too many men in the box. This offense is just so predictable, and it's not forcing the defense to back off and take some guys out of the box because it's not attacking downfield. It's not attacking even 15, 20 yards down the middle of the field. So I don't know what that was all about. Mike Tomlin seemed to indicate during his press conference that they were just content with protecting the lead that they built up. It was 7-0 early, then it was 10-3, then it was 17-3. And they just didn't want to make any mistakes. And they didn't. They didn't turn the ball over at all. And so in that regard, it was fine. But, this is the NFL in 2022, and a 17-3 lead is nothing. It's not like it used to be. And especially when you're facing an offense as talented and as explosive as the Bengals attack. And of course, because the offense failed to do anything with those 5 takeaways, really just 10 points off of 4 of the 5 takeaways. The only, obviously Fitzpatrick was taken to the house for a touchdown, but the other 4, all they could generate were 10 points. And the defense was on the field for over 43 minutes of the 70 minutes of game time. And what happened is the Bengals almost won that game. By rights, they should have won the game. Without some luck, they would have won. So, it's nice to say protect the lead and don't make mistakes, play mistake-free football. But it's not 1976 anymore. It's not even 1986 or 96. You can't play football that way. You can't be that conservative on offense and expect your defense to hold the other team down for 60 minutes or 70 minutes or whatever. It just doesn't work that way anymore, and it almost came back to bite them. So I don't know what to say about the offense. I mean, the defense, it speaks for itself. Again, more on that later. But the defense speaks for itself. They have talent at every level, but you can't win on defense. And that cliche that defense wins championships. If anything, it's 50-50. And in today's NFL, it might even be 60-40 in favor of the offense that, what you need to win in 2022. So they're going to have to find a way to open it up. It's easier said than done because the offensive line is continues to have its struggles. People talk about how it looked better in pass protection. And I guess you can say it did because Trubisky wasn't sacked all that many times, but he also didn't hold on to the ball that long either. He didn't seem comfortable sitting back in the pocket. He didn't seem to set his feet on very many throws, especially the long throw, the few long throws that he attempted. I mean, he threw off balance, off the back of his foot, everything. He wasn't content with sitting back there in the pocket. So I don't know how good the line did at pass protection because he seemed to be doing what Roethlisberger did the last couple of years, and that's he got rid of the ball super quick. So I don't know what to make of this. What the answer is for this offense. We've seen the same thing over and over again for a number of years now. Really, if you go back to 2019 when Roethlisberger was hurt, I just don't know what the answer is. They certainly have the talent at the skill position level, and Trubisky is clearly a freakishly mobile quarterback. He showed that again on Sunday. I mean, he might be one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, he's up there. He has to be up there. His talent is elite, and he has a decent enough arm. But if the other team just continues to, if the opposing defense has you figured out and you're not doing anything to change that, then I don't know what you can do. I mean, somebody posted a thing on Twitter, like some kind of stat cast kind of deal where they charted Trubisky's passes, and the vast majority of them were to the left sideline or the right sideline, 5-10 yards. That's it. And if you watch Sunday's game, you saw the receivers got very little separation. There was a long pass to Boykin. They almost hit, but he was covered. They tried a deep pass to Pickens. It really didn't get a chance to develop. He threw it before he could really set his feet. Did Trubisky, and it went out of bounds. So the receivers made some good plays. I thought Deontay Johnson made some really nice catches, including one that was maybe will go down as one of the top 2 or 3 catches of the year. That one-handed catch in overtime that set up the first field goal try on the sideline. Claypool had a decent game. Freiermuth had a really good game. Even Zach Gentry had a decent game, catching a 30-yard screen pass. So he's really coming into his own as a number 2 tight end. But overall, the attack just wasn't potent at all. So those are my thoughts on week 1. About that defense, and this is my second topic. I think you know where I'm going next, and that's T.J. Watt. He left at the very end of regulation when the Bengals were going down for what theoretically should have been the game-winning touchdown. He injured his pec muscle, and you can see him mouthing those words as he came off the sideline or came on off the field. I tore my pec, and of course everybody thought the worst, and that was that he was going to be out for the year. We've seen that in the past with people like Cam Hayward, and many years earlier, Aaron Smith he suffered several of those kind of injuries. So, when it's serious, it is a season-ending injury. So, the initial fear was that he would miss the year, and it kind of tainted that overtime period. All the craziness that went on in overtime with the missed field goals and everything, and even before that with the Fitzpatrick blocked extra point, you just kind of had a sinking feeling watching the rest of that game unfold, because we all know how valuable TJ Watt is to this team. And that's one of the funny parts I've found about the days after that game, and the fans, their reactions to it. I think on an intellectual level, they know that Watt's by far their best player and their most important player, and without him, it's going to be tough. But on the other hand, on the side where they want to cope, they're like, well, next man up. They can survive this and throw in Malik Reed and Jameer Jones, and the standard is the standard. But clearly, that's not realistic. It's a nice thing for Mike Tomlin to say to his players and to get them fired up and to motivate them. And you have your opportunity now to shine. And of course, Reed he does have plenty of experience with filling in for a prominent pass rushers. He did it the last 2 years in Denver. Last year with last year with Bradley Chubb, I think, and the year before it was Von Miller. Yeah. So he started 26 games the last 2 years, and he racked up 13 sacks. So clearly he's a decent backup, but he's not TJ Watt. And there really is nothing they can do. There's not much they can do to scheme Watt's absence away. Like they say, you can't train away a bad diet. Well, you can't scheme away a bad injury. You can't. You can do some things. You can compensate. You can kind of try to make up for it. Mike Tomlin kind of mentioned that during his press conference on Tuesday when he talked about redistributing the responsibilities and how they attack, and that's good, because the defense is talented. It's not just TJ Watt, but you have obviously Cam Hayward, you have Alualu and Ogunjobi now on that line, so they have a talented line. They have a deep defensive line with Loudermilk and Leal. Those guys, obviously, Miles Jack has been a tremendous addition for them, and of course, we know about what Fitzpatrick brings to the defense. And I think, in my opinion, and it's not even really, I'm not really going out on a limb by saying he threw his hat in the ring for the next Defensive Player of the Year award, the way he played on Sunday. But, when you talk about next man up and the standard, and somebody else has to step up and take Watt's place while he's out. By the way, he went on the injured reserve list on Thursday, which means he'll have to be out at least 4 weeks. I failed to mention, when I was talking about how everybody feared the worst during that game. Well, in the days after that game, it was revealed that Watt's injury wasn't as serious as originally feared, and the thought was and remains that he could be back in as little as maybe 6 weeks, maybe even less than that. Who knows? But nevertheless, they're going to be without him for a good chunk of the season, a noticeable chunk of the season, minimum 4 weeks. So clearly his absence is going to impact their defense. We can sit here and talk about how it won't all we want, but everybody knows that it's going to impact their defense. Just like it would if Troy Polamalu went out in his prime for a significant amount of time, or James Harrison went out, the year after he won Defensive Player of the Year. If you lose him, that's a big deal. So when you say, well, the next man up, basically what you're saying is the Steelers were kind of dumb for paying T.J. Watt $80 million in guaranteed money prior to the 2021 season. Now, obviously, the Steelers aren't dumb. They paid him that kind of money. They went against their probably what they went out of their comfort zone and did something that they were always reluctant to do because they knew what kind of a talent T.J. Watt was. I mean, or is. Mike Tomlin mentioned it last year. The rate that this guy gets in the quarterback's face per pass attempt, the amount of times he beats his man and gets to the quarterback, either pressures him, hits him, or sacks him, it's almost unparalleled. It's incredible. So this guy is an incredible difference maker, and it's not just rushing the passer. It's pass coverage. We saw that on Sunday. He wasn't really necessarily in pass coverage, but we've seen him drop in pass coverage and make plays. And of course, his ability to set the edge on running plays is probably very underrated, but it's not. It's known by those who know football. So the guy's just an all-around incredible player and arguably the best defensive player in the NFL. So you don't just replace that guy. And when you the reason why they decided to give him that kind of money is because they knew life without him would be that much more difficult. And that's what you do. You make compromises. Maybe you go against what you think is your best judgment for special players. That's why you put up with Ben Roethlisberger's locker room politics all these years, and his passive-aggressive style, his passive-aggressive threat to quit in 2017. You placate to him and maybe keep people like Ryan Switzer on a team because they were buddies, right? You allow Antonio Brown to live off campus during training camp or be late to meetings without any repercussions because these guys are that special and you have to make compromises even if you don't want to. So that's why you do things like that. That's why you pay a guy $80 million in guaranteed money for the first time in your history. So TJ Watt is going to be missed and the defense will be worse for it. And there's no way to say otherwise. But again, I think this defense can still be pretty darn good. But what's going to have to happen is you're going to have to hope that Cam Hayward continues to play at the level that he's been playing at forever. I mean, the guy is just a phenom. I mean, he's defying the odds. He's 33 years old, and if you watch him, if you focus on him during a game, play in and play out, he's just terrorizing the guy trying to block him. He's just wrecking his world. This guy is arguably the most underrated player in the NFL. And the reason why I say that is because he's probably going to make it to the Hall of Fame when he retires. Whether it's not going to be first ballot, more than likely. And maybe he doesn't make it, but he's certainly going to get considered for the Hall of Fame. He's going to get votes. That's how good this guy is. So you're going to have to hope that he keeps playing that way. To ask Cam Hayward to step it up, he can't step it up any more than he already does day in and day out, playing and play out. I mean, he put the whole defensive line on his back last year when Alu and Tuitt were absent, and he might have had the best year of his career. I mean, the guy's just a special guy. So you have to hope that he keeps playing that way. You have to hope that Devin Bush gives you what he gave you on Sunday, which was pretty good play. I mean, he was just pretty good against the Bengals. He wasn't a liability like he was all last year. So you have to hope that Devin Bush plays that way or hopefully elevates his game even more and starts to look like the guy that they traded up into the top 10 to take in 2019. Obviously, you have to hope that Minkah Fitzpatrick really is a strong candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. Whether he wins it or not, that's immaterial. You have to hope that this guy plays the way he did on Sunday against the Bengals. Now, he's not going to have that kind of game every week, but week in, on a consistent basis throughout the year, you need that kind of a play from Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's certainly capable of it. He's arguably the best safety in the NFL. So you need him to do that. You need Ogunjobi to show up like he did in Cincinnati last year and in Cleveland. You need Alulu to be the Alulu of old and do a heck of a job with playing the run and everything. You need Edmonds to continue to be a solid player who does a lot of things for you. Sutton, you have to hope Ahkello Witherspoon continues to morph into this cover corner, which it looks like he might have that ability to be a true cover corner for them. And of course, you have to get a lot out of Levi Wallace. So there's a lot of things that have to happen for this defense to make up for the loss of Watt. So there's a reason why people were concerned and being all like doing the gloom and doom thing, the sky is falling thing when they found out Watt would be out. There's a reason for that because he is that special of a player, and it's going to take a whole village to make up for his loss. That's what $80 million players mean to their team. So, the way the Steelers, to me, heading into the season, I thought even with Watt, this maybe was at best a 9-win team. The margin for error for them was razor thin, even with TJ Watt. The way they want to play football in 2022, they want to rely on an elite, dominant defense. They want the offense to just not make mistakes and let the defense win it for them, which is, as I said earlier in the show, so hard to do in 2022 with these fantastic offenses. The rules geared toward offense, and when you see people like Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert go at it like they did on Thursday Night Football in Week 2, I mean, it's like they're playing a completely different brand of football than what the Steelers are playing. When you see the Bills play, it's just to try to win the way they want to win with defense first in 2022. It's so hard, and that's with TJ Watt giving you Defensive Player of the Year level play like he did last year, and they barely made the playoffs. So it was razor thin with him. Without him for even a month, it could affect things to the point where they missed the playoffs by a game. They lose a game, maybe they could have won with Watt in there and wind up missing the playoffs. Instead of maybe finishing 9-8, they finished 8-9 and missed the playoffs as the 8th or 9th team in the AFC. Last year, and this stat's been quoted ad nauseum this week. Last year, they were 0-4-1 when TJ Watt either didn't play or was compromised during the game with an injury. He had to leave early, or he was just not himself because of injury, including that tie against the Lions. That was the one part of the 0-4-1. Maybe a healthy TJ Watt. You don't even remember that Mason Rudolph started that game because they win that game. They beat the Lions because he makes a play or two or three. That's the difference in the game. So he's that valuable to them. And, he had 22.5 sacks last year, one of the best defensive performances in years, and they still barely made the playoffs. So that's what people mean when they react in a negative way to the loss of TJ Watt. It's just common sense. So that's topic number 2. And topic number 3, and this is more about last week's game, and I wrote about this the other day, and it was that 55-yard miss by Chris Boswell in overtime, and how shocked he was, and how shocked his teammates were, and how shocked I was that field goal attempt flooded off the left upright and was no good. Because as soon as they made it inside the 40, I thought it was game over. When he lined up to kick that 55-yard field goal, I thought that he was going to make it. That's just how good he is, and that's how good these kickers are in 2022. If there's one part of the NFL that doesn't get talked about nearly enough as far as like the evolution of a position, it's how good kickers have become across the board over the last 10 years. I mean, it used to be like 10 years ago, when you thought of kickers who can make field goals over 50 yards away, who'd you think of? Maybe Sebastian Janikowski and maybe a couple other guys. I mean, there was a clear tier of kickers, for years. There were 3 or 4 or 5 that were really, really good, and then maybe a tier or 2 below them, and but now it's like they're just about all of them are so good. It's hard to find a truly bad kicker in 2022. We know about Justin Tucker. He made that 66-yarder last year in Detroit to win a game. The Browns have a kicker now. I forget his name. I should have looked it up before I did the show. I meant to, and I just forgot. But he supposedly is another kicking phenom that's gonna be a Mr. Automatic for years to come. Harrison Butker, the Chiefs kicker, he hurt his ankle in last week's game against the Cardinals, and he came back into the game and kicked a 54-yarder. He did it like he took one step and nailed a 54-yarder. The Broncos lost the game because they sent their kicker out, Brandon McManus, to attempt a 64-yarder at the end of the game against the Seahawks on Monday Night Football last week. And Nathaniel Hackett's, he's the Broncos' new coach. His critics said, "Why didn't you let Russell Wilson, who was returning to play the Seahawks in his first game as a Bronco, why didn't you let him try to keep the drive alive on 4th and 5? There was still over a minute left in the game, and Hackett just let the clock run down to 20 seconds and then let McManus attempt a field goal." But I got exactly like I got it right away. These guys are just so good now at kicking field goals from long distances that I thought it was worth a shot. I think we've reached a point now where if a field goal can win you a game or at least tie a game, and you're around midfield or the 45 or whatever, you might have a better chance of sending your kicker out to kick a field goal than to try a Hail Mary. I think that's where we are now. So that's one part of the NFL that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, is how good kickers are all across the board. We saw Evan McPherson. Basically, he struggled at the end of that game because of his long snapper. But earlier in the game, before his long snapper got hurt, he made a 59-yarder, and I mean, he made it with plenty of room to spare. So, I kind of made a joke about Boswell looking shocked, because 10 years ago, you'd have been shocked if he made a 55-yarder, not missed one. That's how far these guys have come. And I think it's just a matter of time before somebody makes a 70-yard field goal. I just, maybe the conditions are going to have to be ideal, indoors, no wind. But I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, you look what these kickers are doing at I almost said Heinz Field, at Acrisure Stadium now. I mean, they're making 50-plus yard field goals on a regular basis. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the fact that the turf at Heinz Field has gotten a lot better. But, we're talking about a stadium, or Acrisure Stadium. We're talking about a venue, a football venue that got into Chris Brown's head so bad, and was it 2001, 2002, that, he lost his job here. I mean, he came into the league as a pretty darn good kicker in 1999, and then Heinz Field, the then named Heinz Field, ruined him. And he recovered and had a decent enough career after that with I think the Texans, but he was a good kicker that just mentally he could not handle Heinz Field. And, but even that venue can't stand in the way of the evolution of the modern day kicker. So that was one little thing, was fun to write about in the wake of a win. So that's the next topic I wanted to talk about. And I want to hit on one more thing real quick before I take some questions and comments. And that is, how can the Steelers win this Sunday against the Patriots? And I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. But I think even without T.J. Watt, the Steelers defense can handle what the Patriots show them on offense. because really they have very little on offense. I mean, they have Mac Jones, who went out and drafted him in the first round last year, which was a smart move. After you lose Tom Brady, you have to replace that guy. And the history tells us the best way to do that is with a first round pick, whether he pans out or not. You certainly have a better chance of finding a guy in the first round than any other round when it comes to a quarterback. So that was the right thing to do, but they've given him very little in terms of skill position players to work with, which has been the theme in New England for a number of years. Just ask Tom Brady. That was one of the reasons why he went out of New England. He was sick of not having people to throw to. If you look at their receivers, it's Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, their tight ends named Hunter Henry. And I looked at the stats on all these guys, and there's nothing special about any of them. Now, Damian Harris is a pretty darn good running back. He had over 900 yards last year. He averaged 4.6 yards a carry. He's a pretty decent running back, and the Patriots have a good offensive line, certainly better than the Steelers. So that might be one way where they can exploit Pittsburgh, but I look for them to be pretty stout against the run. I think if they can find a way to to shut the run down or minimize the running game, minimize Damian Harris, then I think they can control the game. Because I mean, if you can have your way with the Bengals in their dynamic attack, guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins before he got hurt, and Hayden Hurst, their tight end, and obviously Tyler Boyd, and of course Joe Mixon. If you can handle them, then you can handle the Patriots attack. So I think it's just it's to be one of those games where probably Pittsburgh's offense is going to struggle again, and it might be another boring attack. Hopefully it's not, but I think it's one where Pittsburgh's gonna come away with a key turnover or two, and that's going to be the difference in the game. I'm thinking 17-14, 20-14, maybe 17-10 like it was in 2018 at Old Heinz Field. So I think Pittsburgh's going to win this game. I feel good about this game. Last week I felt bad, I didn't feel good about week one. Of course, that turned out well for them. So maybe I shouldn't pick Pittsburgh, but I think their defense is going to handle. They're going to handle the Patriots offense. I think their defense is, even without TJ Watt, I think they have a better defense than the Patriots do. I think they have more playmakers than do the Patriots. The Patriots certainly don't have a Mika Fitzpatrick kind of player on their team, or a Cam Hayward. So I think it's going to be a good day, and I think getting off to a 2-0 start going into Cleveland on Thursday would be huge. So those are my thoughts. And I will round out the show, as I always do, by taking some questions and answering some questions and highlighting some comments. Let's see what we have here tonight. While I was rambling on, let's see what the input you guys had in tonight's show, which is always great. Here's one from Jeremiah Yoder, who also joins us tonight from YouTube. And he says, key turnover, monster Mika Fitzpatrick will see to that. There you go. That's what I say. Hopefully, we saw in 2019 when Fitzpatrick has takeaways, he usually does that game like for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. I mean, he was really just, if he's allowed to be the Mika of 2019, then he's going to be he's either going to get a lot of takeaways or force a lot of takeaways or turnovers. So I hope you're right. Thanks, Mean Joe. Brian Brown joins us, and Jesus Tamez says that the Steelers will double the Patriots this Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. Of course, that could be 20-10. But still, I think we'd take that. Tony Ringer says, who joins us from Facebook, Steelers need to establish the run, control the clock, and give the defense some rest and better red zone offense. I know it's easier said than done. Yeah, I mean, the whole establishing the run thing, to me, I don't think that's going to happen until you open up the pass. Honestly, I truly believe that. I think it's going to be hard for this team, and I said this on Monday on The Hangover. I think Shannon said it too. It's going to be hard for this team to ever establish the run if it can't open things up with the pass. Because as long as teams are allowed to crowd the line of scrimmage, as long as they feel like they don't have to fear the passing game, then it's going to be so much harder to run. So it might be where I think where they have to hit some big plays early, and maybe that's be a good way to open up the running game. Thanks, Mean Joe says, I agree. Not as good as the D is not as good without TJ, but pass or nothing. Our defense is still strong, even minus TJ. Steelers win 24-10. Wouldn't that be a joyous day, Mean Joe? And I would certainly say thank you to Mean Joe if that's the score. Mark Malone, who always joins us, former quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, 1980 number one pick for them. The score could be 6-3. Well, that wouldn't be a shock either. Remember back in 1997, Cordell Stewart against Drew Bledsoe, Pete Carroll against Bill Cowher. It was 7-6, divisional round at Old Three Rivers. What a game that was. Ron Schultz from Facebook says, tight end, 15 yards over the middle. Well, that would be a good play for them. You know, Pat Fryermuth is obviously such a talent, and why they're not using him more down the seam over the middle is beyond me. Chase Claypool, another one. And this is Brian Brown from YouTube, and he asks, do you think Steelers Nation will have their pitchforks and torches out if Mitch struggles? Yes. Believe me, they will. It won't take long because Trubisky struggled last week. The whole offense did, and they're itching for Kenny Pickett to be the starter. So they'll be calling for him. There'll be some Kenny chance pretty early if Trubisky doesn't do some things for the offense. Hopefully he does. George Hoover brings up a really good point. Belichick is great at preparing for average quarterbacks. Trubisky is average. Well, I mean, he certainly you can make that case for him so far through his career, and he certainly had a below average game the other day. He did make some plays at the end, and he seemed to be most effective. We've seen this in the recent past with Ben. He seemed to be most effective when things were up tempo and they had to go to a quick no huddle kind of an offense at the end of the game. Maybe they should try more of that. I don't know. Timothy James O'Connell from Facebook says the Steelers have big play wide receivers. I think we should get the ball down the field to Claypool and Pickens. And I think our D will be good without TJ, a big loss, but we have a good defense overall. As far as the defense, like I said earlier, I think it could be good without Watt, but it's not going to be the same without Watt. To say otherwise, again, you're saying the Steelers didn't have to pay him $80 million. As far as the big play receivers, they do. I mean, obviously Deontay Johnson's a good all-around receiver, their best all-around receiver. Claypool has shown big play potential in the past, and Pickens showed that during the preseason. But it's just a matter of them doing it. It's just a matter of them executing. I think part of me wants to believe that they want to hit these guys for big plays, but can they stop living in their fears and doing it? Is it going to be another one of those weeks where they're going to be content with playing it safe and hoping the defense pulls things out at the end? Hopefully they can hit some big plays and open this offense up. Awesome stuff. 1983 says from YouTube, I am trying to be patient about the offense. I usually always trust in the coach and organization. If Mitch struggles, I will want to see Kenny. His accuracy and anticipation seem top notch. Well, they did in the preseason, that's for sure. Of course, it's a different animal in the regular season. We'll see what happens, but you're right there. Awesome stuff. It's not going to take long for the fans to be itching for Pickett. But he also does say he hopes that Mitch balls out. And this is another one from Ron Schultz. And it says Trubisky needs to look off the defense and stop throwing off of his back foot. Thank you, Ron. He did that the whole game, and he didn't look off anybody. Everything that was so frustrating about the game plan is it was just a quick drop back and first read to the sideline usually. First read to the sideline. 5-yard outs. That was the whole game. He didn't set his feet. Again, it's like he didn't trust the O-line to even protect him for a second or two. It was just drop back, get rid of the ball. Drop back, get rid of the ball the entire game. Let's see what else we have. That's one from Michael O'Malley, who joined us from YouTube. And he says, Bill Belichick, the Patriots head coach, longtime head coach, is 35-36 without Tom Brady at quarterback. Without Gisele's husband at quarterback. Of course, Tom Brady. And that's true. And that was the criticism of Belichick for all those years with Tom Brady. When he was the Browns head coach, he was average. He had one playoff year, but by and large, he was pretty average as the head coach. And he's been average in New England without Tom Brady. But I'm not shocked. I mean, this is the if you look at most great head coaches throughout NFL history, they all had great quarterbacks. And without the great quarterback, they weren't the same. But yeah, Belichick is not a infallible wizard and genius without a great quarterback. And Mac Jones is pretty good. He's pretty steady, but it's hard to even think he's going to be anywhere near Tom Brady. That's a once in a century kind of quarterback. So he might find out that life in the NFL is extremely tough without a quarterback, without an all-time great quarterback. And you're not the genius you are on defense, or you thought you were on defense without one. Piggy Bronco corrects Michael O'Malley. Google hasn't changed that yet about Belichick's record without Brady. It should be 35-37 because of the Dolphins manhandling of the Patriots offense in week 1 down in Miami last week. That's a good point, Piggy Bronco. And this is This is Awesome Stuff 83 says of Pat Fryermuth. He is quite the weapon. He needs to get involved early and often. Yeah, well, he was involved on that flea flicker that came early in the game. Of course, they only got a field goal out of that. He caught it down inside the 5, and they could only convert a field goal out of that opportunity. That's what I mean. And that's another point about TJ Watt's absence is this defense couldn't have played any better. 5 takeaways. 7 sacks. I said this already. Total domination the entire game. And they still, by right, should have lost. If not for some bad luck on the Bengals' part and maybe some mismanagement on their part, perhaps they lose that game. So, all the you can talk about defense all day long, but you need a competent offense to win in today's NFL. And the Steelers' offense has not looked competent since about Halloween of 2020. And that's not hyperbole. That's not me being a troll. That's a fact. You watch the games. I watch the games. We know what we're seeing. This offense has been dreadful, and it was dreadful again last week. And I kind of expected it to be dreadful, but I didn't expect it to be dreadful in the same way that it was in 2021, because we kept hearing about how badly they wanted to get a mobile quarterback. They wanted to move on from Roethlisberger. They wanted to get somebody in there who could run the RPOs and run Matt Canada's offense and move around in the pocket and have a moving pocket. And yet we saw the exact same attack that we saw under Ben. And something's got to change. If they don't change up how they attack these defenses, they're not going to ever figure this offense out. So I'm fired up. Anyway, Brian Brown says, I bet Miles Jack gets an interception this Sunday. That'd be nice. It's going to have to come from a lot of different places now that TJ Watt's not in there. All right. Let's see. Do we have anything else? Nope. Oh, we're getting up against the the 60-minute mark anyway, so it's probably time to call it a night. It was a fun-spirited show. You guys really were great participants. Don't forget to continue to check back the Behind the Square Curtain all weekend for pregame coverage, both on the editorial side and, of course, the podcast family. And, of course, check back after the game for just endless coverage, wall-to-wall coverage before the game, after the game. They're going to have articles for you. They're going to have podcasts for you. Everybody's going to have their hand in the pile. So you're going to have some great coverage before and after this Sunday's game. But, before that gets here, I want you to have a great weekend. I want you to enjoy the game. And I will talk to you on Monday on The Hangover with Brian and Shannon. Until then, you guys have a fantastic weekend. I already said that. I'm trying to do different things. You guys are great. You guys are awesome. Go Steelers. Go great weekend. I'll talk to you soon.